Welcome to the Don't Call Me Midlife podcast. Okay, listen up. This is going to be the podcast of all podcasts. We are talking with Megan Sumrell. She is a time management expert. She's the founder of the Pink Bee, and she tells a story of how she came up with her name, and it is absolutely incredible, and every woman needs to hear this.
Okay, we love Megan. We were fan obsessing with her. But what you need to do is you need to go get your notebooks, go get a pen, because you are going to get so many tips on productivity, on your schedule, on finding joy in your life too. And there were some tears. So listen to this episode.
I even cried.
You're not going to want to miss this one. So listen up, ladies. This is one to listen to.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited.
Nicole.
Hi. Hey, Megan.
Hello.
All right. I have been looking forward to this interview for 2 years. And I didn't even know it.
Before we started the podcast, Nicole, that's impressive.
Yes, because I have been obsessed with Megan for 2 years. So I can't wait for everyone, if you don't know Megan, for you to get to know her. And if you do know her, get to know her a little bit more. So I'm just going to jump in with our usual segment. What's in your cup? Alix, what's in your cup, my girl?
Well, I have coffee because I love coffee any time of day. And I recently set up a little coffee bar in my office, and I have pumps of sugar-free caramel syrup, sugar-free vanilla. I have some collagen and some nut pods in my fridge here because I have a fridge, meal prep fridge in my office. And so I made myself a special coffee treat with all my syrups in my coffee bar. So it's fun. My husband's not allowed to use it. It's just for me.
I love it.
So that is exciting. What's in your cup?
Well, my cup is excitement. It's just water. I'm just excited. It's, I've got notepads and pencils. I'm going to take all the notes. So, yeah, that's what's in my cup. How about you, Megan? What's fun. Yeah,
well,
it's
my cup at the moment has water in it, but I just started introducing something to my water, but in the evenings only, that a friend gave me that's life-changing. And it's this dropper I put in that has magnesium, but a vanilla taste to it, and is like the perfect end of my day before I jump into bed. So I'm looking forward to that getting in my cup again soon.
I love that.
Tell us more.
Is it in hot tea, or is it just cold water?
You can put it in hot tea. You can put it in water. I like it just in plain water. I'm not a big hot tea drinker, and I've just got it 3 days ago. So I've had it for the last 3 nights, and it totally relaxes me before bed, and I love it.
I love that. Okay. We've tried lots of magnesium things. Have you guys seen that tart cherry juice mocktail at night? I haven't tried that. That's sort of a lot of sugar for me at night, but I do take magnesium pills.
No sugar, no additives. It just comes like a little vial with a dropper thing. And I take a magnesium supplement, which is a great conversation for midlife. Yeah. But this is just something a little extra, and I love it. It's delicious and great.
Oh my gosh, you're going to have to tell us so we can put it in our show notes.
Yeah, I'll have to find the exact product and then send it to you guys.
We'll link that. The other thing that I think I just started doing is putting magnesium lotion on my feet. And it works, you guys. I did that for my kids too. And I was massaging their feet. They're older. But they actually, don't tell anyone, they really liked it. Especially my middle one, because he likes a massage. But it smells like lavender. And I got it from my son in boarding school because he says he's having trouble falling asleep. Oh. So it just smells
for my daughter. She has a lot of getting to sleep issues. I love that.
Okay.
Is that the one that Gina told you about? Or is this a different one?
Yes. One of our friends told us about it, but I did buy one off Amazon that comes in a day too that I gave to Baker as well. So there's a couple out there, but it's nice and relaxing. We love nighttime routines in midlife.
Yeah, especially midlife. Speaking of midlife, Megan, how do you feel about the term midlife?
It's funny because right before this, it's like, oh, I guess that's me, right? And it's I feel like I have a very healthy relationship with my age. I'm 50. I'll be 51 this year. And I rolled into my 50th like, hell yeah, let's do this. And I put a lot of thought and intentionality around it. But the term midlife, I'm still like, no, that's not me, because in my mind, I'm just not there yet. So I don't know. It makes me chuckle a little bit.
Yes. I love this season, but the terminology, I mean, I feel like Alix and I talk about finding a better word and like branding it, but
and I feel like this stage of life for women in particular is tremendously underserved. Whether it's, health, whether it's nutrition, whether it's having honest conversations about menopause, whether it's discussing the realities of everything we're juggling in our lives and the expectations put on us. I just think it's a tremendously underserved community at large.
Yeah, I do feel like our generation is doing more to bring awareness to it. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot more. I'm sure the Instagram algorithm is targeting me, but I do feel that there's more about nutrition coming out with, some of these health coaches, and doctors are talking about it more.
Yes.
So
I'm glad to see that it's shifting some, but man, I think we have a long way to go.
Oh, yes.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. And I think it's, I think we used to be chalked up to sort of the norm of the way that we feel. And now we're just not taking that for an answer, right? I know I go to doctors and I'm like, no, that's not okay. I know that's not okay.
Right.
So I know there's something else I can do. And we love what you're doing in this space.
Thank you.
You are amongst many things, a time management expert, but we've listened to lots of your podcasts, been on your Instagram, and changing the landscape of how people, like you're saying, #do all the things, right? How do we manage it? And my perspective is you give us hope that you can, be that mom, work inside or outside the home. You can do things that are fun and have that time. Because I think it's also, in addition to our health, a lot of things that are in past generations, that's just the way that it is that mom should be stressed. We need to be checking things off the to-do list. That equals success. I know that's the way that I have been when I was a little younger. So I love the work that you're doing. I think the work you're doing is making a difference. And Nicole and I literally stalk your Instagram because we're like, help us. And so can you tell a little story of, the story of how you started, how you, I know do you have one child?
I do. I have a 13-year-old.
Yep. Okay.
And, I never, my third grader, Megan, was not answering the questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? By going, I want to be a time management expert. Like, no, that never rolled off my tongue. This was not something I intentionally thought out. I think for so many people in the service-based industry, this work started as a need for a problem I had. And thankfully was able to position it in a way to help now tens of thousands of other women. So I spent over 20 years in the corporate space, working in the IT world across a lot of different domains, but a lot of them very, very masculine. The kind of e-commerce world is very masculine. And my last 7 years in the corporate space was in aviation. So often I was one of maybe two women in the room. And I went through, as part of what I did for a living, was to go into organizations, software teams, and redo everything that they did, all of their systems and processes, so that they could get their product out the door better, faster, cheaper. So I went through tons of trainings and certifications, all around process improvement, eliminating waste. How do we run projects better? So I actually have a bunch of really nerdy certifications at the end of my name that if you're in a room full of nerds, they get it, but the rest of the world is like, I don't know what that means. And all of the trainings that I took back then for planning and managing my time worked great because I was a single woman. It was just me. Eventually I had a dog. And I got married later in life and started a family in my late 30s, and had a very pivotal day when my daughter was about 2-ish or so. And I was pushing her on the swings, and I was still working corporate and, juggling motherhood. And the mother next to me the conversation kind of turned, and she very innocently just said, so what do you do for fun? And I had nothing. I literally was racking my brain, and I couldn't come up with anything that just me did for fun. And I would love to meet this woman and thank her because she started me on this trajectory. But I do remember going home that night and kind of having a complete breakdown after I got, just getting through the motions, get the kid to bed, like all of that. And just I had this moment of just sobbing in my closet because I was grieving the loss of who I'd been. I just took like a picture of my life and I'm like, what the hell is this? All I do all day, and my goal every day is to get everything on the list done. And everything on the list was in service to work or my family. Nothing on the list was ever in service to me. And on the outside looking in, I looked super productive because I got a lot of things done. But on the inside, I felt awful because I was exhausted. I really didn't even know who I was anymore. And then, of course, as women do, I felt tremendously guilty for feeling this way. Megan, you should be so happy. You have a nice home. You have a nice job. You have this family. Like, you have nothing to be upset about, right? And thankfully, it hit me a few hours later. Hey, this is kind of what you do for a living. You go into organizations where stuff's getting done, but it's not being done well. And you figure out a better way to do it. So I was like, what if you took everything that you've learned and applied it to your life as a project to see, is there a better way to handle all the things competing for my time and produce a life that I'm happy with, that I can answer the question, what do you do for fun? So that kind of set me out on this course to create what is now called the TOP framework, what TOP stands for Time Management, Organization, and Productivity. And I really built it for myself. People started noticing a difference in me. They're like, hi, are you going to a new gym? I'm like, no, I'm just happy and I'm well rested. I'm going to the gym.
Classic, right?
I'm just happy.
Right. That's what I was doing. Did you lose some weight? No, I'm just happy. And so a couple of women that I know in a local group had asked, they're like, would you teach us what you're doing? Ooh. So I was like, well, I don't know. Can I teach this? So I agreed to work with them if they gave me honest feedback. So I'm like, I'm not guaranteeing you that this is going to work. I think it can. And so after working with them and seeing the transformation they had, I was like, this is it. This is my calling and this is my passion. And so now this is what I do. I'm on a mission to bring work-life harmony into homes everywhere through very pragmatic, very simple, but very powerful step-by-step systems to help you plan and manage your time, but in a way that's unique to each individual woman out there. Because men and women are different, and how we need to plan and manage our time needs to be different, because we are handling things that men typically don't handle. And sadly, most of the people teaching in this space are men. And so it's no wonder why there's a constant disconnect, and why the systems that worked for me when I was in a very masculine role worked great until suddenly I wasn't in that role anymore.
So I love how you just own, this space, right? Be really, niche down into who it is. So who for your system is your ideal client? Is it just people that own their own business? Could they be a mom?
Not at all. And it's so funny because, if you run your own business, one of the first things coaches always tell you, like, you got to niche way down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kept going, but no. And I'm always someone where the minute someone tells me how it has to be done, I'm like, no thanks. I serve women that feel overwhelmed. That's the bottom line. I have women in my program who are in their 20s and single and juggling a corporate career and going, oh my gosh, I've never had to do all of this before, to there's been an influx of women in their 80s, which I love. Going, I'm in my second phase of life and I don't want to waste any minute of it. Like, how cool is that? Yeah. And I attract a lot of women who are in that stage of what I call you're in the trenches, right? A lot of moms where we're juggling multiple calendars. Some are full-time at home with their kids. Some are running businesses like I am. Some are still, going into a W-2 job and coming home. But the common thread we all have is, I don't anymore, Grant. I mean, I have my days, don't get me wrong. This feeling of, I feel like my whole life's purpose is just to try and get all the things on my list done. Yeah. And I'm tapped out and I don't see an end in sight.
Yeah.
I
Well,
remember
there's so
those
much.
days.
Yeah. I wish I'd
Yeah.
found you like 20 years ago. I would have been. There's so much noise in this space, right? And you can look on Amazon, you can look on Pinterest, you can look on Instagram. But I love your advice because it is practical. And the fact that you're giving women the tools to build their own system, right? There's so many systems out there that are, you have to do this, you need to time block, you need to
God, don't
wake
get
up
me
at 4
started on
a.m.,
that.
you know, all this stuff where you're empowering women in a special way that they have to build a system. I know Nicole and I have tried lots of sort of scheduling tricks and tips, and it's taken me a year to figure out what works for me.
And what works for you today isn't going to work for you probably a couple years from now, right? Because
well, don't tell me that.
No, but it's okay. But it's okay because and that's what makes my approach to teaching this. What I tell everyone is the framework is the same. Like the processes that I'm going to teach are the same for everybody. But what gets to be completely different is your inputs, right? Meaning, what are the things competing for your time, and what are the realities of your life in this moment? So like everything competing for my time and the day-to-day reality of what I'm living in is very different from both of you, and yours is different from each other. Now we can all use the same framework, but because our inputs are different, what we create on the back end, meaning what our calendar is going to look like and what our plans are going to look like, are also going to be completely different because our inputs are different. And so what I love about this top framework is when you learn the framework, you get to use it forever because it's just your inputs that are changing. So therefore your output changes. What my plans for my week look like right now look very different than they did even 4 months ago, because 4 months ago I still had my daughter at home for school, and we just put her back into a actual physical school in January of this year. So even just looking from at the end of last year to the beginning of this year, my inputs are very different because we have new demands with drive times and school schedules and all of that we didn't have before. But I'm using the exact same planning system then as I am now, just my inputs and outputs look different.
So is your program ongoing? Do you have like start dates? Is it a membership?
It is available all the time. Because again, like the last thing I want to do is, number one, prevent when you can and can't get help on managing your time. And then number two, go, oh, and you have 4 weeks to learn it. Like, oh, great. Let me add some more overwhelm to your plate because you're not stressed out enough already. So the program is structured as a DIY where all the training is done, pre-recorded, very short videos. Because again, there's nothing worse than purchasing a program and you open up the first video and you see it's like 73 minutes long. It's like, oh my God, I'm never gonna be able to start this thing, right? So when you invest in the program, you have it for the rest of your life. There's no time limits to when you want to do it. Also, because sometimes I'll have women who reach out to me now and they're like, okay, I first went through the program 3 years ago, just had a huge life change. And so I just went back through it again and I got so much more out of it the second time. Because, like you have to hear things like once you master something, then you have space to hear more. And then I do monthly, once a month, I come on and do live Q&A that's open to anyone and everyone who's ever been through the program, because I want this to be something that you get to lean on and continue to use and get refreshers in ways that serve you.
When you have your clients, do you find that one of the biggest challenges, and this is from speaking personally, is that change of mindset of focusing on what's important? Like you talked about fun in the beginning, right? Fun used to not be built into my schedule. I had a similar situation as yours, except someone called it joy. How do you get joy? And I was sitting there thinking, I have no idea. I called my best friend, was like, how do you get joy? And she's like, I don't know. So I have found like prioritizing that fun, that joy, but also your responsibilities is that balance or the harmony. I love the word that you use, harmony. And so what is the biggest challenge or the biggest complaint, I guess, that people are having coming into your program?
I'll tell you, it breaks my heart because I have a systematic way of teaching how you get the time back in your calendar for it. It's actually step 3. It's that far up at the top of the weekly plan. We don't take the leftovers. We don't take the sloppy seconds. We're actually prioritizing it. And you would think that would be the problem that people would have. It's like, oh, I feel bad doing it. The problem women are coming to me with sorry,
Oh,
is they come to me and say, I'm having a hard time thinking of anything.
yeah.
They're so far removed from the last time they did anything for fun that when I ask them, what do you want to do for fun? That's the hardest part they're having, is reconnecting back with themselves from when they had it. And
Yeah.
once we figure out what that is, or they figure out, I kind of help them figure out what that is for them. That's the hardest part. Once we know what it is, prioritizing the time for it now is the easy part.
Wow. So people are just sort of going through the motions, especially in midlife, right? I think of even having, a date night with my husband, right? It's just like, we're too busy. We're so tuned to say, we're too busy. Sorry, I can't do that. I can't,
And
Too
wow,
tired.
yeah.
there's the guilt around it too, especially if it involves money. Well, if I spend money on that, then I can't spend it on my kids. And I have a girlfriend right now that there's something that she would very much benefit her life greatly. And she's like, it's just not in the budget. And I challenged her and I said, if your child came to you right now with something that was going to be, $200 a month that you knew would be life-changing for them, I bet my bottom dollar you and your husband would find a way to make that work, right?
Yeah.
But you're not willing to do it for yourself because you aren't valuing your happiness as much as you are providing happiness for others. And so I think a lot of times women have a hard time with that as well. So that's why I always try and look for, let's find the things that are free first. And it was interesting because when I was first reconnecting with, okay, what am I going to do for fun? I was kind of like, I don't know. I went back to life before marriage, before kids, before any other responsibility other than myself and my job. And I was like, okay, Megan, what did you used to do? I was like, it just started flowing. I was like, oh, well, I used to go on, hikes, and I did a ton of baking. I used to make wedding cakes and decorative cookies, all these reading that I used to do. And so I made this whole list and then I went and looked at it. I was like, okay, travel was in there. So I'm like, all right, let me find something. And, cooking was at the forefront of it. And I was like, okay, I don't actually hate it now. I loved it way back when, but now that it's like part of day-to-day life, I'm like, well, I really don't want to bring that back into my life anymore. Last thing I want is more time in the kitchen. But it started very small I love like CIA type books, like all the David Baldacci series and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I realized I think I had gone for at least 5 years where the only book I had read was a parenting book or a work-related book.
Yes.
So I was like, I can start there. I can start there and say, when I get into bed at night for 10 minutes, I'm reading a book that does nothing but just bring me joy and make me feel good, instead of learning something and bettering myself and being a better mom and being a better employee, being a better business owner. And so it can start as small as that. And even just that first week of reading for 10 minutes, the book for sheer pleasure, it was like a life-changing way to start stepping back into that.
Yeah. Wow.
And my parenting didn't suffer because I didn't read the latest parenting book for an additional 10 minutes that day, right?
Right. Nicole and I know all about that. We are book collectors. We like to collect a lot of self-help books. I recently bought some fun books. But I think also as women, and I don't know if you find this too, we define our happiness by others' happiness.
By others, 100%.
And doing health coaching, I found that a lot. I had to really have a hard talk with a lot of people. Well, what makes you happy? Well, if my kids are happy and I do this for them, and I'm like, no. Not your kids, not your husband, not your spouse, not your friend. What makes you happy? And I don't know why we are in this society of why is that so hard to do, right? And it's not selfish, right? You reading for 10 minutes a night should be the norm. It shouldn't be the exception, right?
And this is why, like, when I go out on social media, you see so many of these women's retreats or girls' weekends that are so elaborate and so enormous. Because that's almost what it takes for someone, like they finally just get to a breaking point. And I can remember back when I was in the trenches before, planning and managing my life the way I do right now, once a year, I would go out for a weekend with my sisters And I would literally be sobbing in my car as I was finally leaving for it. It was almost this release of responsibility and this and that and the other. And you don't see this talk about guys' weekends and guys' whatever, because they're doing it on the regular. They're prioritizing time for themselves. They're not starved for this need to reconnect with themselves the way that women are. And I think if we build it in, now it's not like I'm just counting down for 11 months till I can go do this thing again. And we still do it every year, but now it's just part of everyday life. And I'm not heading to something that I've starved myself of for the last 12 months to finally have it again. And when I see all these women just, desperate for time to connect, and it has to be these huge, big trips, I'm like, to me, that's just a sign of people who aren't getting enough of it in their day-to-day. Not that you shouldn't have the big schwanky trip, but right. Are you rolling into it tapped out and you're using this to fill back up? Or are you rolling into this already full and this is just like a cherry on top of the sundae, right?
There was once a quote I read that was, live your life like, I can't remember it, but it was like that you don't need a vacation, like sort of what you're saying, right? Like you don't go into these weekends like, I'm gonna, just go balls to the wall. I actually can enjoy it, right? And so bringing some of that into your daily life and like you're saying, into your daily schedule, being productive, doing what you care about, doing what matters, in addition to all our responsibilities. I know you teach that too, but that's really the foundation of living that life in harmony as you're talking about. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Is that where the term harmony came from versus work-life balance, work-life?
So
the B word.
I was a math major, so I geek out on like mathy type analogies. When you think about balance, there's like two good analogies that I like to use. One is, and you'll see it even in pictures, they'll show like the old school balance, weight things where they have the two jars or plates on either side. Well, in order for it to be balanced, everything has to be equal. And when we're thinking about balance, we're thinking everything equally. So whether we realize it or not, especially for moms, it's like, okay, well, if I give myself 15 minutes, and that means I have to do 15 minutes for this person, this person, this person, this role, this role, this role. And we're looking at our life day to day, because sadly, that's what productivity experts are teaching us to do, is to do your brain dump for the day. And we're seeing that, well, in order to balance it, I have to serve all the roles in my life equally. And that's the key to success. And another way to think about balance, my little thingies are happening. And this occurred to me.
I love it.
I was with my daughter's gymnastics lesson back when she was really little, and they were working with the young girls going across the balance beam. So those things are tiny, right? 4 inches wide. And they were just learning how to just walk across it and listening to the coach them through what they had to do to stay balanced was exhausting. Shoulders back, head up, tuck your bottom. And what are your legs doing? Keep your arms even, keep your head up. No, don't look down. What are your toes doing? And in order to stay balanced, literally every muscle down these little bodies have to be engaged and working exactly right, or you fall off the beam. And this is what, whether we realize it or not, so much of what people are teaching when it comes to work-life balance, it's like this complex mathematical algorithm that we have to solve in order for everything to be equally. I'm like, and that's what I was doing when I couldn't answer the question, what do I do for fun, right? I was just balancing keeping my family alive and keeping myself employed. Whereas if we think about the term harmony instead, I always like to think, I was a music minor, so I love music. If you think about a band or an orchestra playing, if you look at all the musicians on the stage, they're not balancing anything. They are not all getting equal playtime. They're not all playing at equal intervals, right? Sometimes it's this is the soloist. Some things the drummer never even plays or whatever. But what they produce collectively is beautiful harmony. I was like, that's what I want. I want to have all the musicians on my stage, in my mental brain and in my life, producing something absolutely beautiful. And it might mean that certain days or weeks or months, one part of my life is getting a lot of focus and another isn't. And that's okay, because it's all tying together for the ultimate piece of music that I'm creating at the end, which is my life. And so I think when we can think of it that way, it just gives us so much more permission to say, this isn't a math equation I'm trying to solve. Everything doesn't need to be equal. I get to create what's going to be really beautifully harmonious for me.
I love that. It's like you can't hold all the balls in the air. You know, I've heard that before, right? They're all going to
like
fall.
The spinning of the plates, right?
Right.
One goes,
Sometimes
they all go.
Right. And that's why I love, like, you know, looking at the system, you know, maybe on a weekly basis, sometimes even, you know, a daily basis, because things happen, is you can't have your family, your work-life balance, your, you know, all these things always. Sometimes, you know, you've got to pivot. That's one of my questions is, you know, we're not going to share what your system is, right? But
I couldn't fit it into this. This would be the longest podcast.
This would be the longest one. People can find you. But my question is, if you have your system, right, that works for you, and there's a time and a place, I feel less stressed when I know there's a time and a place to do things for me. That's sort of my little internal system. I'm not worrying about the checklist every day. What's your advice if, you know, you have to pivot, right? Yeah. You get that phone call saying your kid's sick when you've got a meeting, or, you know, all those things sort of happen.
That never happens. See, I create a plan on Sunday and it goes exactly as I planned it every
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So this is what I call planning for uncertainty. And it's actually part of the planning process that I teach. Oh. So everybody out there, man, woman, age, doesn't matter. We all have some level of uncertainty in our lives, and it changes in different seasons, right? So, you know, when my daughter was in preschool, my level of uncertainty was very high, meaning I had lots of curveballs coming at me during the week. I had lots of times I needed to pivot. I am currently, fingers crossed, seem to be in a stage with much less uncertainty right now, subject to change at any given time. So I teach people how to figure out what is their unique amount of uncertainty that they have. Because half the time we're not even aware of how much it is. Because what do we all say? Next week will be different. Oh, this was just a doozy. Next week will be different. Or if I can just get through this month, next month will be different. Chances are the data's telling you it ain't going to be any different.
Right.
So instead of pretending it is, let's understand how much of our time each week has to be spent on things that we don't even know are coming yet. When we know this, we actually get to plug that piece of information in to our weekly plan so we can do what I call absorb them very easily. So for me right now, I'm in a season of life that during my work days, I don't work that much. But Monday I kind of work with my daughters at school, but even then I don't even use all that time for work. But I know I'm going to have somewhere between 3 and 4 hours of things that are going to come up each week for the business that I don't know about when I sit down at the start of the week. So I actually build in 4 hours into my weekly plan for work of I don't know what it's going to be, but something's coming. Then if one of those pockets of time comes up and I'm like, hey, nothing's hit me yet. Well, now I get to swap it out with something else on my calendar. So I get to say, I have a feeling it's still coming. So I'm actually going to do that thing I wasn't planning on doing till Thursday right now because I can. But so I'm basically swapping those two little things on my calendar. But if we don't know how much uncertainty we have in our life, we're going to continue to plan for perfection, meaning complete control of my calendar. Nothing's going to interrupt me. Everything's going to take exactly as long as I think it is. Nobody's a perfect estimator. Nobody has a life without interruptions and distractions. So when we learn what it is and we plan for it, now we're not getting overbooked. We're not getting overscheduled. And when you get that phone call because yesterday, I got the phone call yesterday. Your daughter's not feeling well. Can you please come pick her up early? Well, if I had everything planned, it would have been disastrous, right? The domino effect. I would have been staying up late or getting up early. But I was able to go, not what I was planning to do right now. Fine. I'm going to be able to go get her. And what I was going to be doing during that time is now moved. I actually have it moved to Friday morning. So again,
I think you just changed Alix's life.
I'm literally like taking notes.
I can see her like, Her facial expressions.
I'm like, literally, you just changed my life, because I think part of how my journey has taken so long with me is being realistic about your time, right? And I think it's like
That's one of the
analyzing
9
that data.
components in the program is realistic. And
Because
we
it
have
just,
to be.
you have to be realistic, because I was sort of that person that's like, yeah, I can write that text in 10 minutes. Well, I just, before our podcast, I'm doing a challenge, wrote 3 texts. It took me an hour and a half, right? So it's just being more realistic about actually how long things takes me.
And that's why we start the program with a time audit. It's not to make you feel bad about how you're spending your time, but it's how you learn how much time do things really take, so that instead of I would every week say, oh, the emails I need to write for the week, I'll knock those out in 10 minutes. That's what my gut tells me every single week. And for 4 years, the data tells me you need an hour.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You're every week I'm like, oh,
That's
10 minutes. No, because I have it written down. 1 hour, Megan. But until we learn how to capture that and then where to store that information, we're going to continue to just always plan unrealistically.
Yeah, I do that with time travel. It's like when I had a paper calendar, I would just think I would be like George Jetson and just like transport myself places. Like I was not allowing, and my friends joke because I'm always late. I'm like, I'm just a really efficient person. But what I found myself doing is that I was not allowing for the travel time to
the drive time. Yeah.
And even the transition time. Like, it's picking my daughter up from school is about, like, a round trip to school is about 55 minutes. But on my calendar every afternoon for school pickup, I have 2 hours blocked for that. 2 hours for the 55-minute round trip, because there's I might like to go to the bathroom and stretch my legs and have a hot minute before I get in the car, right? Not jump from a call and hop into my car. Then there's also that I need to get there a little early. Like I'm not there the second she's walking out, we're getting in the car and driving, right? And then sometimes there's traffic on the way home. And then there's we walk in the door and it's oh, by the way, Mom, I need to have the school project tomorrow, or this or that. And it was kind of the unpacking and unsettling of the day. But most people would only block in that 1 hour instead of I'm blocking out the full 2.
Wow. This is
There's a lot of math involved in what you do.
Guys, people get caught up in that. We're talking 2nd grade math here.
Yeah.
Basic addition and subtraction. That is all that is required of you. Basic addition and subtraction.
Yeah, no, I'm not scared. It's just like when I listen to you and your analogies, there's a lot of no.
How many hours are in your day? So when you have your clients who are actually, business owners, right? They're entrepreneurs. What is your advice, or what do you say do you build your life around your business or your business around your life? Because that's something that I know I go back and forth with a lot. And I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Neither. They're built together.
Oh, okay.
They're fully...
Alix and I are joining the top program today.
And I get this question all the time, because one of the first things we do in the program that I teach people to do is to create their list of things competing for their time, right? And they're always, so if they're a business owner, like, do I keep a list for my business over here and keep a list for personal over here? And for true solopreneurs, like I get to decide how much I work each day, right? I'm not a W-2 employee where someone owns me for 8 hours a day. Right. So for people where you truly own your time, I tell them you don't separate those two. The bottom line is I have personal stuff and work stuff competing for my time every day, every week, every month. So I have to prioritize them together, because there may be a week where there's something going on personal wise, which means personal's getting a lot more of my attention than work, and vice versa. And so when we try and, as women entrepreneurs, trying to, particularly if you're a mompreneur, trying to separate those two gets people hung up so much because they think they need to build consistent routines and consistent schedules in their calendar in order for it to work. And the reality is, for most of us, that's just not possible, because this is the week of a half day. This is a week of a teacher work day. Oh, we've got spring break, right? Every week is so different. So for me, it's not which do I plan with the other. It's just I'm planning my life. I'm planning the way I want to live and the way I want to spend my time. And so those two are always tasks for work and tasks for personal and for family and for fun are always being weighed against each other.
I love how you worded that.
I call it integrated planning. We're integrating all parts of our life into the plans that we are making.
That sounds nice. What do you think about also boundaries when you work with your clients? I know in order to be efficient, I've had to set some boundaries a little bit. And I'm speaking like in terms of my phone, right? Because that can be such a distraction of your notifications or someone calls you. And that's always been really hard for me lately, because I'm always someone
that is another one of the 9 components. Boundaries is another.
I think I should take your
You're the ideal client. Yeah.
I'm the ideal client. Because, I've had to do things like I was writing my challenge this morning and someone called me. Normally I would answer that, right? It's one of my close friends, but I didn't because I was so focused on what I was doing. Sometimes I personally have to put my phone in a different room, but it's like, there'll be times where, and I feel guilty doing that, but setting up those times where I can talk to that person later, because then what's going to take me an hour and a half is going to take me 3 hours. And then I'm going to be, it's just, I think setting these boundaries, especially around now, social media or, your phone,
so I
electronics.
I have an app in the App Store. It's called the Pink Beats, and both Google Play and the App Store. And in it, I have a whole little mini course on how to set up your mobile devices to minimize distractions, basically how to create boundaries in there. Because what I like to tell people is you can actually set up your phone. Our phones are smart enough now that you can basically program your phone so it only talks to you in a situation where you've deemed it important enough to interrupt what you're doing.
Oh, wow.
So my phone can be here on my desk all the time because it is not going to make a noise at all unless the school is calling me, my parents, my husband or my sister or my daughter. Now, they also all know, hey, if there's just something, if you just want to chat or something like that, shoot me a text because my phone's not going to make a noise. But if you need me, call. Because if I hear my phone ring, my phone is telling me something very important needs your attention right now, and you've decided it's worth interrupting you. So I could be getting phone calls while I'm sitting, like right now, I don't know, someone may have called me, but I know it wasn't something that would have been important enough for me to go, hang on, I have to take this as an emergency. So we get to decide what boundaries we want with all of our technology because they're smart enough and they have the ability for us to program those in there. And I actually give tips on what apps belong on your home screen and which ones don't, to help reduce distractions and help you set healthier boundaries with what you want that experience to be like. So, yeah, I mean, boundaries is huge. And one of the first things that I teach when you go through the training on boundaries is we have to understand what kind of a person we are when it comes to boundaries, because there's yes people, there's no people. And usually we're all, and then there's the conductor people, the ones who want to own everybody else's boundaries for them. And usually most of us are a mixture of all of them, but just in different phases of our life. So yeah, it's a critical part of learning how to control our time and calendar.
I even think that the system for the phone would work for our kids, because I was just talking to my 2 teenagers about, he puts his phone, my oldest who's in boarding school, puts his phone on silent. And, I have to call him twice. I'm like, you can put I have a special ringer for my mom, and it's really funny. But, I was like, you can put your parents, if we need to call you, you can just allow us. So I think that would be helpful for us in midlife. All these tech tricks even to use on our kids with phones too, and teach them the proper way of setting those boundaries now. Because when I told my kids, I said, I turn my notifications off. I don't know if someone DMs me on Instagram or likes something. And they looked at me like I was a crazy person. They're like, oh, you have no notifications? And I see their phone buzzing all the time, and so I think
dopamine
setting
hit.
Yeah,
Teens crave. Yeah.
They are designed to addict us. The people who built them have even admitted this. They're designed for that. So now we're left with how do I rewire this differently to prevent that from happening?
I can imagine that. Okay, I have one more question for you. I do have a lot. So you have formed, this system sounds amazing, and I feel like it seems doable. It doesn't seem overwhelming. It seems very, workable for people. Has there been something when you've been building your business, or a bit of advice that you tried something that just didn't work? That was a total disaster,
Which
right?
one should we pick from?
Well, or, I thought this was going to work, but it didn't. And, where you learned from it, right? Because
and it's something I'm still reminding myself of this every single day. And if I could go back to myself when I was really, really launching the business and getting it off the ground, it is so easy as a business owner to get that shiny object syndrome, right? The latest new marketing strategy, the latest new thing, the latest new way that everyone is saying is working for them. And it's very easy to think that we have to build lots of things to be successful in business.
Yeah.
When the fact is, if you have something that works, that is working, that sells, like for me, my top program, I know it works. We've had thousands of women go through it. I have a page a mile long of testimonials from women that have gone through it. I speak with them every month. And I still get tempted to go, oh, but I could also build no, what if instead I spent my time just focused on more people in the top program and making sure they are all served well. And so I know when I look back, I have wasted, I wouldn't call it wasted. Well, no, I'm going to call it wasted. I have wasted time building things because other people were sharing that this was the way to go. Whereas instead, if I just can stay laser focused on doubling down on saying, this is my thing. There's a book called The One Thing. It's a great read. I think every entrepreneur should read it. And just say, this is my one thing. I need to make sure everything I do in business supports this because the data is showing me this works, instead of feeling like we have to add. Sometimes I'll go on people's websites and it's like, here's my list of 22 courses that you can choose from. And they're across this whole range of topics because they're thinking, well, if I just create another thing, then I could sell that and then I could reach that person and that person and that person, instead of just saying, this is what I do.
Yeah. This is it. Yeah, and that's easy to get caught up all of that, especially now with social media, and go down the rabbit hole of looking what everyone's doing, because there is a lot of noise in sort of all the spaces,
a customer, an existing client or customer, I get requests for, could you also teach? And I'm like, I could, but should I? Yeah. No. And so in an effort sometimes to serve our existing customers, we can get derailed in going down. It's a slippery slope of it's kind of in line with what I do, instead of now, like, people will come to me all the time. Oh, could you just show us how you do your decluttering of your photos and keep your digital photos organized? No, I will not. Here is the person that you go to for that. I could build a whole training around it. But again, that's pulling me away from what I do.
What your focus is. I love that. I think even if you don't own don't own a business, and you're working from home, and whatever, you're just overwhelmed, staying sort of that, like, laser focused is too strong of a word, but staying focused on really like that big picture, right? Yeah. And there's always going to be a new shiny object. There's always going to be something, but what works, and just
what we don't want to be is that ball in the pinball machine, right? Whether it's time at home, whether it's work, whatever, where it's just like ping, 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 I'm over here, like, no, pinball's a great game to play, but let's not be the physical ball in there that's just constantly all over the place all the time.
Yeah. So why do you call your company the Pink Bee? I'm curious about that too. We wore pink for you.
Same, yeah, we did.
I was like, my pink is just lower on my sweater.
Well, Alix is
my favorite. This is my office. I wanted to show you.
Oh,
Because
I love that. Look at all that pink. That's awesome.
I love pink. Yeah. So tell us about that.
Well, it is, I'll make it short. I have the B part came from I was the co-founder of a software company a while back, and the B was part of that business. And I got very well known around that, and people always would call me the Queen Bee. And when that company, we ended up dissolving the software company, it hit me very hard. There was a lot of, it was just very, very hard to shut down a company that you've poured your heart and soul in. And I had this love of all this bee stuff, and people had sent me bee stuff. And so I had always in the back of my mind wanted to find some way to keep that positive and not this, to me, my bees started becoming like a sign of failure. And I didn't want that. The pink is something I've always loved pink. And when I was out of college and I was going for a job interview, I had on the traditional black suit with the black stockings and heels, and I had a very light pink blouse on. And my roommate at the time, she's like, I wouldn't wear that. You won't get hired. Like, take the pink off. And I listened to her, stupid me. And years later, I was speaking at a conference, a technical conference, and I was backstage waiting for my turn to go up. And it was a very male conference. And I had on black pants and a blouse and a light pink blazer. And they said, do you have a different blazer you can wear? Number one, it'll be distracting. And number two, I will not be taken seriously. Oh. And yet I love pink. And there's always this backlash of pink is girly and feminine, like it's a bad thing. And so when I left corporate, it was a journey for me to reconnect with my femininity again and to own it and be okay with it and not be embarrassed by it and not see it as a sign of weakness. So those two things just kind of came together as the Pink Bee. So for me, that is why I love this name so much.
I love that story.
And it was interesting because I was in a mastermind group of business owners, and I'd always just branded everything under my name, but the business was growing so fast. I was like, I want to get a name for the company so that it's not, we have a future of things that's not just me. And I said, I really want to call it the Pink Bee. And I was advised strongly against it, because it doesn't say anything about what you do. It doesn't let people know about time management, like nothing. And then someone brought up an example. So I brought up the example. I was like, well, I mean, look at the Nike swoosh. Like, that doesn't say we're athletic. Or look at the Amazon smile. That doesn't say what Amazon does. Like, it's just a name. And then the brand, people know it. And one of the gals goes, well, that's awfully bold. So you're comparing yourself to like Nike or Amazon. So that just made me be like, yeah, watch me.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
And I can't tell you the number of emails. And I mean, I even get gifts in the mail from students from all over the country and the world, even, who send me stuff because they're out somewhere and they see a bee thing and they see something pink and they think of me. Yeah. And it feels like it's like our own little community secret of our shared little pink bee thing. So I love it.
Bees are good luck in Greece.
Yes, they are.
I thought it was like busy bee. Bee.
Mm-hmm. Nope. And kind of the queen bee, the whole swarm mentality. I did a whole episode on things about bees and why I named it this. But when you read up on how a queen bee in a hive really works, it's not at all what you would think. And so it made me love it even more. Yeah.
Oh, so how can our listeners find you? And do you have one of your workshops coming up, or what do you have coming up?
So, I mentioned the top program is something that's always out there, but I do a couple live events every year as just a way for people to get to know me better and a way for me to teach something really specific. So I only do this once a year, and it's coming up here. I am doing a free event called Master Your Morning. And it's only 30 minutes a day for 5 days. And I teach everyone a step-by-step process to create their own unique morning routine based on two things: their specific personality type. So we actually do a personality assessment. And then second, the realities of their home life in the morning, right? I'm not going to tell you what time you need to wake up. I promise I am not going to tell you to get up and meditate and do yoga and journal. All right. Like this is not.
Oh, good.
Yeah. We're in.
It's a way for people to discover what is a way to start their day that sets them up for success based on who they are and the realities of their life. So it's a ton of fun because we get to see all the different morning routines that people create. So if you want to join that, you can just go to megansumrell.com/master your morning. And it's a free event. And yes, replays are available. If you can't be on live every day, you can come back and watch it and stay along. And then, as I mentioned, if you want to see a little bit about some of the time management teachings, the app is a great place to start. So you can search either the App Store or Google Play and just search for The Pink Bee. To unlock all the training in it is just $4.99 US one time. It's not like a monthly subscription or anything. And so it unlocks, I think, about 5 courses there inside the app to just give people a little flavor of, introduce you to the whole top framework and stuff like that in there too.
And what's your Instagram?
Megan Sumrell. Very easy to find. Yep.
Okay. And we'll link it in the show notes for
just
sure.
Look for pink.
Look for pink. Okay. I know how to do that. I think that's great. Nicole and I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. We have learned so much, and I know all our listeners are going to love hearing about this. If you have any questions, reach out to Megan. You can message her on Instagram. She would love to help you out. Now we're going to do our favorite time. It is a little bit, you've given lots of advice, I have to say. But what do you want to start, Nicole? What's your unsolicited advice for the day?
Oh, geez. My unsolicited advice. I might take some of Megan's advice and just regurgitate it. I'm just kidding. But as listening to this, what struck me was, I don't know what brings me joy or what I do for fun. I was thinking about it while we were talking. And so I started having these things, and it wasn't about other people in my life and what brings them joy. And I don't feel guilty, but I don't know that I make it intentional. So I think you should be like me and think about what truly brings you joy, what brings you fun, and just start the list. Just start there. Because it is not an easy thing, because I have been thinking about this for the last hour, and I'm still trying to come up with something other than reading. So that's my unsolicited advice.
I love that. Write it down, put it on a Post-it so you can see it, right? And it could be, I think you find, I'm not going to tell you, but I think you find joy in walking your dog.
I do. I find joy in walking mine.
I do.
Guys,
I don't. So
I started a year and a half ago taking cello lessons because I always wanted to learn how to play the cello. I'm not going to be in a band. I'm not going to be in an orchestra. I'm 50 years old, for the love of God. Like,
Right.
You could.
But it's solely for me, and I love it. So, and I think people think they have to have a reason for it. The only reason is that something you want to do.
Yeah. I guess I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano, and I love painting, but I don't, maybe I could take a painting class.
Yeah. 100%.
Or learn how to bake at altitude.
Yeah. Learn how to bake and cook at altitude.
Gosh. That's a struggle.
Okay.
All right. So I got 3 things. Look at that.
Yeah.
We're finding joy for you all around.
Yeah. Thank you. What about you, Alix?
I loved hearing everything that Megan had to say. I think, and this is from personal experience too, if you're listening to this and you're feeling like, wow, this sounds so good, but how do I do it? Right. I think knowing that there's hope to have this harmony. And I really believe that. And like I've said from the beginning, I've been working on this for a year and I'm still working on it, right? This stuff that Megan's talking about is not easy. right? If you think it's easy, it's probably not going to work. But really being honest with yourself about who you are, like you said, and what's important to you. Because as I'm on my way there, you gave me more tips to continually change and adjust. And I think just realizing it is a process, like a lot of things in life, that it's not going to be perfect overnight, but you will get there. And like adding that happiness to your life, I never knew like it connected to your schedule, right? Or your productivity, I guess you could say. But how it's all together in harmony, I think is such a beautiful thing. And it is possible. So
Yeah. I love it. I think we've all cried when we think about what brings us joy. Honestly,
yeah.
I have teared up at least 3 times throughout this. And I think it is something that we women just struggle with. And I think this conversation needs to be had at a much younger age than trying to change your mindset and be okay with doing things for yourself in midlife. I mean, that's just my take on it.
And your kids are going to see that, right? Like I've noticed, I've been doing some things, your kids are going to see you painting and think that's interesting. The things we prioritize.
My family has the opportunity to, I inconvenience them a little bit when it's time for me to go practice my cello, just as they inconvenience me sometimes for their activities. I mean, I probably need a better word than inconvenience.
Right.
But we're all seeing that we work together as a team to make sure that everybody in the house has time for themselves to do the things that they love. So on some days, because we have a puppy right now, so we kind of can't leave her unsupervised. So that might mean, hey, my daughter, you're downstairs for the next 30 minutes doing dog duty because it's my turn to go practice for the day.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. We were honored that you were here, and check out Megan, message her with any questions. And thank you guys so much. This was a fun talk.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.